Welcome to the Nuance Conversation podcast. I am your creator, curator, and host, George Hurd, and we have special guests with us today on this unique episode where we're able to cross the borders, literally, and go down to the motherland of the diaspora of Africa, specifically the country of South Africa. We'll dig into that today. Our guest is none other than Pastor Paul Msiza, all the way from Pretoria, South Africa. He's a dear friend and beloved brother who I've shared at our church on several occasions. I have a couple of occasions to share at his wonderful church down there, the Penn Salem Church, which we'll hear much about today. Besides being the former Baptist of the World Baptist Alliance, the largest collection of Baptists across the world, he is also a powerful and prolific preacher, a loving and caring pastor, a devoted husband and father. And we're just so happy that you were able to be here in Nuance Conversation. How are you feeling today?
Well, I'm feeling great, and thank you for having me. Thank you for great hospitality. I've enjoyed myself. I've enjoyed the church yesterday, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, Los Angeles is already the place to visit, isn't it?
That's right. It's the right place for me.
It's the right place to visit. Listen, we're excited to have you here. I want to dig in, but here at Nuance Conversation, we have to swear you in first.
Okay.
You have to swear to be empathetic. You have to swear to be intellectual, transparent. Nothing that I'm worried about. Just raise your hand. Do you swear to abide by the rules of Nuance Conversation?
Well, I do swear.
You do swear. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's happened. He's sworn in. We're ready to go. Here, Nuance Conversation is about transparency. It's about opency. About being open. It's about being intellectual. It's about listening and having a sense of empathy to different perspectives, different ideas. One of the things that's definitely needed as it relates to that when we talk about the continent of Africa, and I'm stressing Africa as a continent, just not as a place that you could throw off. A lot of people say, I want to go to Africa, I want to go to Africa. Africa is very nuanced, ironically enough, nuanced conversation as it relates to East Africa, West Africa, North Africa, southern region of Africa, not just South Africa in that southern region, then Central Africa. Some of the ABCs, the continent of Africa for dummies, how would you make that distinction as it relates to those 5 major regions? And then we'll dive into some of the nuances as it relates to your hometown, the southern region.
Our motherland. Let me just begin by saying that, people don't actually know, most don't know that Africa is one of the largest continents. If you take a flight from Cape Town up to the North Cairo, you will not fly less than 10 hours.
Wow.
That's how large the continent is, from south to up north. And interestingly, you have these fascinating diversity that you find. In the south, you'd find mostly the Nguni people, and the dominant faith will be Christianity.
When you say Nguni people,
people will be people who speak almost a similar language. It's almost similar. It's linked. When we try to trace this is a language that actually it's linked to the Lake District, to the Central Africa, to Congo.
Okay.
To the main language. When you come out of Congo, you see those languages developing and showing some variety as we move towards the south.
So the southern region, you have a logistic that is also similar. Then you have the religious aspect that's also similar. The religion is Christian and the language is Uginic.
The language, though it's different tribal languages, but somewhere, somehow you can hear similar words. Similar words. When you are in Zimbabwe, it's mainly Shona and Ndebele. And when you're in South Africa, you do find Ndebele. And when you listen to Shona, you pick up some of the tribal languages spoken in South Africa, like Venda, you pick Shangani, you pick Sotho, within the Shona language itself.
Gotcha.
And so, and then these languages they're not so far a part when you also listen to how the Chichewa speak in Zambia or Malawi, so there's that similarity in those languages. And then the other thing, as you said, you'd find that the dominant religion would be Christianity. Then the other thing also, the staple food. We all use corn as our staple food. It's grounded corn that they pounded until it's like flour, and then they cooked, and then we eat that with meat or vegetables and all that. So that's very common.
Taco-ish.
It's like you would cook your grits, but you'd make it hard.
Got you.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's very common that you find in the southern region.
The dietary similarities, language similarities, religious similarities.
That's right. And then you go to the East.
East Africa, yes.
East Africa has almost like a common language. And you go to Tanzania, Kenya, you go to Ethiopia, and you find at least Ethiopia would find that there's a little bit of difference. But if you look at Uganda, what is this? Where there was
Somalia.
this massacre, the Somalia,
Rwanda.
Ethiopia, Rwanda. If you look at Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, there's similarity of language a little bit there. Yeah, a little bit similarity of language. Of course, then the other part of East Africa, it's almost tied to North Africa. Language-wise, language that it's linked to Arabic. That's linked to Arabic. And then North Africa mostly is Arabic. And then, very interesting, Central Africa is divided. That's where you see division. In Central Africa, you find Anglophone and the Francophone. You have Anglophone, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana. Then you have Togo, that would be Francophone, Togo, Mali, Senegal, Chad, Niger, those who speak.
So you named West African countries, but you're saying in this region of Central Africa, there are migrants from that area, West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone.
So as I've said, that East Africa, there's commonality in language a little bit. And then you have those that have a language that's similar to Arabic.
Arab, yeah.
Okay? And then North Africa, it's all Arabic.
It's all Arab.
Okay? Then you go to West Africa. But West Africa, you find that it's almost divided into Anglophone and Francophone in West Africa.
Language-wise. Yes.
But culture-wise, there's so much of similarity. You look at the dress code. Some of the tribal language have similarities. In West Africa, like in Ghana and in Nigeria and so forth. And then let me go to Central Africa, which is the most richest part of Africa. When you look, DRC Congo, you have everything.
Wow.
You have everything.
Dominican Republic of Congo.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has the deposit of, you have copper, you have diamonds, you have gold, you have in abundance. It has rained throughout the year. It could supply the whole of Africa with water if infrastructure was made possible. So that's the most part that should be rich. And when you go to the West also it's rich in the oil deposits. So
the natural resources are rich in Central, especially uniquely rich in Central and West Africa. With the Central Africa division and conflict that happens there often, is that tied to the economic of the natural resources?
Yes. That's why you find that Central Africa will always have instability, political instability, and that is caused mainly the resource.
Natural resources.
Natural resources. There's this fight over natural resources. And as an African, I can say this. I've sworn that I'll tell the truth.
Yes, you've been sworn in, yes.
The West is still involved in destabilizing Africa. Because as long as Africa is destabilized politically, they will always loot. They will always manage to get our mineral resources out. But if our governments get stable politically, then they know that the looting will end.
And West Africa plays a large role, you say, in that.
West Africa, Central Africa, it plays a major role. If you can check even now, that you check places where there's political instability, you would find Central Africa, West Africa, then part of East Africa. Places like Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, they're mostly quiet and mostly, peaceful. But when you go up to Sudan where there's oil, there's always fight.
There's always fighting.
Yeah, it's always fighting going on.
Sudan is considered Northern Africa.
It's part of Northern Africa, yes.
However, it's very unique from the rest of Northern Africa, where it's more Arab, different complexion, different features. Sudan is largely dark, very dark skin, very tall people.
Yes, people of South Sudan.
Is there a role of the conflict that Sudan has? I know within itself it has the Christian and Muslim conflict that's taken place that's even led to the Northern-Southern division.
Yeah.
How about the relationship with the rest of Northern Africa that Sudan has? Do they seem like an outcast comparatively to Moroccans and Egyptians and Libyan people from Libya?
Yeah. And one still have to do a serious historical research on why Sudan has not come where it is so connected to the rest of North Africa. It's not that connected.
Right.
You
connected geographically.
Connected,
but miles away.
Yeah, geographically it's there, but when you talk about political, economic links, you don't see that connection with Egypt, going up to Libya, Tunisia, Morocco. You see that connection.
Yeah,
you see that connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you don't see that much with Sudan, and I don't know whether is it because Sudan has been engaged in a civil war that has gone for decades. One does not know actually what is the cause, but Sudan has always been one unstable country politically.
Well, let's talk about the southern region. That's where you're from. Not just South Africa, but the southern region as a whole.
Yes.
What are the countries that make up the southern region of Africa? Your neighboring surrounding there.
That's right. Yes, we call it the SADC. Yeah, South African Development Economy. That's the southern region. It's you have Zambia. You have Malawi,
Mozambique.
You have Mozambique. You have Angola. You have Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, Swaziland, and South Africa.
Wow.
All right.
What are the distinctions, generally speaking, because I know that's a larger conversation. Generally speaking, what are the distinctions in the southern region? We talked about the language, but how would you distinguish a South African from maybe someone from Botswana or Zimbabwe? Is there a big difference? Not a big difference at all.
No. That's no. much difference. You would, let me say, you'd begin to see difference when you go to Malawi.
Mm-hmm.
The Malawians would be a little bit shorter in stature.
Okay, I've been to Malawi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you cross over again, go to Zambia, Zambians look like South Africans. And Zambians have like one of the famous surname in Zambia is Zulu.
Zulu.
And
Zulu,
you find
South African
so there's that connection. But yes, the Zimbabweans have, the shown us some certain features, but there's not so much difference really. You can't tell unless you live in the region.
Yeah.
And the Botswana people, and we have Botswana, we have the Botswana as a country, and we have the Botswana people in South Africa, many of them. Let's
go back for a second before we go deeper into South Africa. As a union or as a like a group, is there African Council? Is there a governmental oversight of the continent as a whole? And what's the structure of that?
Yeah, the AU.
The AU.
Yeah, African Union. That's right. The AU and its headquarters, it's in Ethiopia, in Addis. So the AU, it's the what you'd say a political wing that kind of like seek to bring Africa together. That's what AU does. The vision actually came with we call the fathers of Africa, those who fought for our liberation. Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta. Those are the people we came and go back to, even Haile Selassie, who have been yearning to see Africa united. And so they came with the unity of Africa, and then it became AU. The African Union, it has, as I said, its parliament. It's in Ethiopia, but also it has its regional structures, and it's divided according to, as you've mentioned, the southern one,
southern region,
eastern region, the ECOWAS, which is the east. The ECOWAS is the western one, and then you've got the northern one. I'm not sure of how the northern one is coordinated, but I can rest assured. I know the western region, it's on the news all the time. It's well coordinated. The southern one on the news all the time. It's well coordinated. It's called the SADC, South African Development Coalition, something of those countries. It works together so well, that one. But still, it's just there to support one another. Yeah, they don't do much.
Yeah. So back to the southern region, let's get into South Africa, best known in these western shores for the apartheid Nelson Mandela. That was around about when you were late teens, early 20s, I'm guessing. All that is taking place. What is apartheid? What are some of the dimensions that led to it? And how would you summarize that to someone that lived through it, that's heard about it, but doesn't really know the nuance of it?
Yeah. Maybe a quick explanation should be, in the 1800s, specifically 1820, the British settlers came to settle in the Cape, and that's when the problem started.
Colonization.
Yeah, the colonization started.
The common practice of British.
That's right,
monarch.
because the first people to come from Europe to South Africa were the Dutch from Netherlands. They came, and what they did, they built a halfway station in the Cape for the trading vessels, ships that were sailing on the west coast of Africa down to the south, going up on the east coast to India. Because the Mediterranean Sea was infested with pirates at the time. So then Cape became a halfway station. So the Dutch came, built a halfway station. The French came, fought them, but then the British took over. The British did not build a halfway station, but they colonized.
What's a halfway station?
A halfway station, they would kind of like, when the ships would come, they would stop there, refresh themselves, get fresh fruit, fresh food, fresh water.
More of a partnership.
Yeah. There was no partnership. It was doing something on somebody's land without permission.
Without permission, got you.
Yeah,
got
so
you, yeah.
they had built that halfway station.
Vigilantes, terrorists,
without,
still,
without, without negotiating with the people.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was not a problem because what they were doing, even though they were robbing our people, they would trade. They would bring some of their products, and then to buy meat, then to buy, so they'll trade with the Xhosas, with the Khoi and the San people, can you sell us that cattle? We'll give you a mirror and all that. And so that was, trading that was happening there, but it had no bearing on the whole country. The bearing on the whole country came when
the British came.
When the British came and put their flag on the soil of South Africa. And then the British did this. They oppressed everybody, including the Dutch. The Dutch had come and they were settling in the Cape, and also we had the French Huguenots. So what was happening, if one would explain that South Africa was kind of like a dumping place for Europe. When they would have excess soldiers who would come from war and had nowhere to go, no money, their own countries could not pay them for, they would promise them, we can take you to a place where you can have a big piece of land without you paying all as a compensation. So they brought this load of soldiers from the wars. That were fought with the between British and Russia and all that. So those soldiers were dumped there, and lately they brought women. And so we have now a community of Europeans now in South Africa, but they were all under the rule of the British. And the Afrikaners the Afrikaners did not want that.
They were not Afrikaners.
They were the
South
Dutch.
Africans.
Yeah, those were the Dutch.
Afrikaners are Dutch.
They were Dutch.
Yes.
Those were the Dutch.
Yes.
They were not native. They did not want that. Of course, the closest, the South African, the native people fought.
White on white crime.
They fought and fought, but unfortunately, these Afrikaners wanted their own independence from the masters, the colonizers, from the British. Now, you are not in your own country. They were in South Africa. They had made South Africa their home. They rebel against the British oppression, the oppressive system of the colonizers, of the British. And then as soon as they got their independence from the British colonial system, they then unleashed that anger that they suffered
on you all.
Onto us. That's when apartheid was introduced.
So apartheid, the oppressor are the Dutch, who fought for their freedom from the British. But after they got the same freedom that they fought for, they used that same manipulation upon the natives of the land.
Yes, the worst anger on us. They then unleashed that system, which is worse than segregation. It was a horrible system because it did not only segregate, but it dehumanized. I explained that. Native South Africans during the apartheid were aliens in their own country. We had no citizenship.
Took away your citizenship.
No citizenship. So you'll be arrested.
So this is nuanced conversations.
Yes.
The question, I guess, an honest, tough question there is.
Yeah.
Where's the South African Native Army? Where's the South African Native political structure during this time? What is the infrastructure of the homeland?
Yeah,
that makes them so vulnerable to a group of people who just got out of a brutal war themselves.
Yeah,
that mainly would seemingly be not at their apex.
Okay.
What is those internal things? Was it internal division? Was it just never expected anything like that? Sort of like the Native Americans. What would you say to that?
Was the shrewdness of the colonial system. Let's go back to the first wars. Now, you ask about the structure. Where were the structures of the natives? Look, our people were structured very well into clans and tribes, and they had chiefs and kings.
Zulu tribe.
Oh yeah, you have the Zulus, the Xhosas, Ndebeles, the Sutus, the Swazis. All of them were well organized.
Yes,
they had their own soldiers. They had, and their main focus wasn't fighting wars. Of course, their main focus was building their communities.
Right.
If they had to go and fight, then they had Amabuto soldiers that they would release to go and fight. But our people, remember that, Africans have this thing that it's a God-given virtue of wanting to live with your neighbor in peace. Wanting to live. It derives from Ubuntu. You want to live with your neighbor in peace. There's no need for us to fight if the land is so vast.
Yeah.
We can always move to another place. And so that you can have your cattle to graze freely and all that. So these African tribes were always moving around, and there were conflicts, but they wouldn't deliberately cause the conflicts. But what happened is, in our history, we have what we call the frontier wars at the borders, frontier.
Yeah.
When the British wanted to expand their colonization, remember they were only in the Cape. They wanted to expand and move on to the inner part of the land, to Port Elizabeth.
Border.
Yeah, the southern part, the
border
southern
where
tip.
The ships comes in.
Yeah,
and that's where
southern tip. Yeah,
the foreign trade and things of that nature.
That's right. Yeah, if you look at them, the southern tip. That's where the Cape is. Now they wanted to move inland and take the whole land, and they discovered that as they explored the land was so fertile, and they had no reasons that they could tell their masters in Britain to say, we want to expand, because what they had was sufficient. But the greed, they wanted to expand, and therefore you read the stories on the frontier wars, they began to create a narrative. And the narrative they created was that the natives are wild, uncivilized, treacherous, can never be brought to civilization according to their terms. They are wild, they are treacherous. Worse than uncivilized, they cannot be. They said these were treacherous savages who needed to be dominated and killed. And so when the British government and the British monarch got that message, they sent soldiers who were coming with guns, cannons, to fight. Xhosas were using sticks and
so the British are coming to support the Dutch.
No, these are British supporting the British now. It's after after they've come and overcame the Dutch, they want to expand the British colony. The Dutch are also under the British now.
So originally you said the Dutch
were the
beat
first
out the British. So they were the first.
They were the first to come.
Then the British came back after that.
So the Dutch came, built the halfway station. All right. And then let's leave the French out, because they came also to try and build they built the station, but they were immediately defeated by the Dutch. So the British come and they took over. When they took over, they make even the Dutch to be their subjects. So the Dutch are now subjects of the British. The British are the ones who are now bringing soldiers to come and fight, not the Dutch, the Xhosa people.
Xhosa is Native Africans.
Yeah, the Xhosa people, They fighting the Khoi and the San people. Now you're asking, why were our people not organized?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you one instance, which is so painful.
Mm-hmm.
The war, one of the frontier wars, the British lost, and they realized that they were losing against the Xhosas, and they wanted to have truce. So they invited the king to come to the Cape and make peace
Mm-hmm.
with the British. On arrival, they arrested him, killed him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're dealing with people who are very evil. When they talk peace,
Mm-hmm.
it's not peace.
It's a setup.
It's
and
a
then
setup.
the venture of the natives is that we want to live together in peace.
Yes. And so they started to eliminate our Xhosa kings. Some of them were arrested and taken to Britain as prisoners of the royal family.
Hmm.
And when you take out leaders, the nation gets destabilized.
And what about the surrounding countries in the African Union? Has it been established yet at this point?
No, African Union was not established at that point.
Okay.
These were very early years. African Union came very late. Now, you have these wars happening, the British doing all their tricks every time to overcome. Some of the wars you'd read are with the Zulus, against the Zulus. They fought against the Zulus and they lost.
Mm-hmm.
And losing those battles, they would find a way to turn things around. Sign peace that would favor them.
Mm-hmm.
They took advantage of our kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Answering your earlier question, why did the people not resist? They took advantage of our kindness.
So there was resistance, but
there was resistance.
Always manipulating the virtue of wanting to live in peace.
Exactly.
Just for my own clarity,
yes.
The Dutch never overtook the British in apartheid.
Yeah, I'm coming to the Dutch.
Okay,
because I was answering your question of why were the natives just sitting back and as if they said
right,
no,
and that's
fought.
not. I'm asking for the other people, not me.
That's good.
Not me.
That's good. No, that's good.
Yeah.
It's very helpful. This is history that people need to know because that's a question. That's a legitimate question that people want to know. Why did not our people fight?
Mm-hmm.
They fought. They were manipulated. Mm-hmm. They had victories, and every time they would have a victory, then there would be something that happens in order to turn that victory.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And in one of the wars, for example, they would they fought, which was fought in the KZ and with the Zulus, is that the Zulus defeated the British.
Mm-hmm.
And when the British would try to make peace, it would not be the peace of we've defeated you. It would be the peace of let's not fight, but we still take part of the land.
Mm.
For me, that if I'm trying to read history, is what they would do. And now you have our people continuing to fight, and those wars they come up even to the area where Pretoria is. That's where my tribe was.
Pretoria, the capital.
Yeah, if you go north of where my tribe was, not there, my tribe fought against these Boers. I mean, these white people, and they defeated them. But still, the whites would find a way to manipulate. They were the ones who were to be called the names that they called the Xhosas were. When they said Xhosas were vicious, these savages. And now let's help to connect with the Afrikaners.
Mm-hmm.
The Afrikaners also suffered the oppression by the British colonial system. And then they left the Cape to go and seek their own independence. So those days was wagons, cattle, so they had their wagons, they moved. And the British followed them. And there was what they call Anglo-Boer War. It is now given the new name, it's called the South African War, like your Confederate War, the war that took place between North and South. So we had a war like that. It was now the Afrikaners
and the British
fighting British. But the evil of that war was that blacks were made to be the ones who go and fight in a war that was not theirs.
Wow. For both sides?
For both sides.
Well, certain tribes and things of that nature.
You know?
The birth of Nelson Mandela that ultimately leads to the Freedom Peace Treaty. We've heard the broad strokes, but for someone who lived through it, what is the role in this proper historical context of Nelson Mandela, and maybe even your analysis of both pros and cons of that era?
Yeah. Now, I was born during the Apartheid era. When I started to understand what was happening in the country, I mean, as a child, Mandela was already in prison, born in the 60s, I'm born 1961. Mandela was already arrested, sentenced. And so, but we knew about him as children.
Wow.
That there was this person who's being jailed for life. And he's a great hero. And so we always kind of held him at an esteem, even though we never saw any picture of him.
Wow.
And the struggle was fought inside and outside the country. When Mandela got arrested, the ANC got banned. The struggle went outside the country. Most of the people left the country to try and seek support. But 1970, then the struggle started to escalate. That's when the students took over the struggle. 1976 became the turning point of everything. And the students were fighting to resist the use of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. That led into the country being in flame, burned. We had spent that whole year of 1976 not at school. I was at secondary school at the time. We spent almost since 1976. We went back to school around about September or late. There was instability in the country. They tried to suppress, the apartheid government tried to suppress the struggle, but it escalated.
This is rioting, this is looting, this is protests.
It's what's happening now. It's people are now forming resistant movements. There's boycotts, which became a very strong weapon. There's resistant movement. Outside, South Africa is now boycotted by by other countries who help us.
Partners, traders.
That's right. Now, what's happening also is that now a lot of young people left the country to join the liberation armies. The one which was led by the ANC, the other one led by the PAC, Pan-Africanist Congress, and the one led by the Azania, People's Liberation. So, armies. So all these, then they would come back and do attacks. They'll bomb the bus station. They'll bomb places where the white people will be. And so the country was now not safe for white people. And so, come 1980, it became worse and worse because most of those who had fled the country to go and be trained came into the country. And so we were fighting. The church had moved now. When I say the church, I'll talk those were aligned with the South African Council of Churches. Desmond Tutu was now leading that. Frank Chikani, Alan Busak, leading that prophetic voice against apartheid. And ultimately, it ended to the point where the apartheid government felt they're not going to make it by trying to resist. It's either the economy will collapse or this escalation of violence will end up in a civil war. So the decision to release Mandela, the decision to unbend the ANC. When Mandela was released, he played a major role to negotiate for a peaceful settlement. And did something that, of course, the world will forever thank him for, to teach the world something about forgiveness. Which, made him, people call him a saint, and Mandela says he's not a saint, he's just a sinner like any person. But he understood one thing, forgiveness. That if you don't forgive, you will not be able to move forward. You yourself become a prisoner of your own anger.
Wow. What is the residue of the apartheid movement in South Africa today?
The residue of the apartheid movement is that Mandela helped us to gain political freedom, and we were the leadership and that is there then and now was supposed to move the country forward to economic freedom. And that has not been realized.
Political freedom, but not economic freedom.
That's right. So
sounds
you still
like a
have
familiar place.
So you still have the economy in the hands of the minority whites.
Is there movements that are going against this, or is it kind of settled as a social norm at this point?
Now there's quite a very strong resistance or strong move to change the status quo. What has kind of delayed the struggle or the transfer of the economy to the majority was one that the ANC had its own internal fight with. Now the ANC that was in 1994 the hero has now become the villain.
Dark Knight feeling.
Yeah, because they are now found, they have been found to be peddling self-interest at the expense of moving the struggle forward.
Advocates of the struggle are benefiting from the struggle, and there's no trickle down economics going on there to the strugglers.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Pastor Paul.
Yes, sir.
I heard you say you were born in 1961.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about yourself as it relates to where you were born, your journey into Christianity, your family structure, as much as you feel comfortable sharing with that.
Okay, yeah. Well, born 1961 in Pretoria, but blacks were not allowed to live in the city. So we're in the township of Mamelodi. So that's my home. That's my birthplace, Mamelodi, a place of whistling. All right. That's where I was born.
Whistling.
Whistling. A place of whistling, Mamelodi. So it's so I lived there with my parents. My parents were those who were affected by apartheid more than I was. The fact that they had not gone to school. My mom used to tell me that she had gone to school up to grade 2.
Wow.
My dad, I think, never went to school.
Wow.
But
and that's because the system didn't allow them to go to school?
No, the system, they wouldn't allow. The black people used to work in the farms for white people, and they would refuse for blacks to take their children to school because they would say, when you work in a farm, you stay in the farm, and then your children need to work for your rent. So as soon as children become like teenagers, they at the age of 12 or even younger, they would be starting to work in the farm. So my parents never went to school. My dad was a soldier in the Second World War. He was grafted in the army. He was based in North Africa during the Second World War. Came back, and the only thank you he got was a bicycle.
Wow.
Never paid for having served in the army, was a bicycle. And then when they built Mamelodi, then that was another way of compensating them, to allow them to occupy those houses on a lease, not as ownership, on a lease. So yes, we stayed in that house, but an unfortunate thing happened that my parents separated when I was 9 years old.
Any siblings?
They separated.
Do you have any siblings?
I have siblings. Yes, we were 6. Yeah. 6 survived. We're about 11 children, but only 6 survived, lived to become adults. So, yeah, I had 4 sisters and 1 brother.
They died in birth.
Yeah, so I am last from the young one. Yeah, my 2 sisters. It's my 2 older sisters, my brother, my sister, me, and my baby sister, who has just passed on to be with the Lord. So we are left now. There's only 2 of us who are left. And so growing up in a township helped to conscientize me of the political situation of our country. But when my parents separated, I had to go and live in a village, very remote area. So we were scattered as children.
Who did you live with in the village?
In the village, I went to stay at my grandmother's, the maternal grandmother, with my 1 sister and my brother, my only brother. The other sisters had to go stay with my aunts. So, yeah, that was the most difficult time of my life. And to go to school in a rural area, But the good thing that as a child, sometimes you don't see these hardships. It's only now when I think about it.
we look back at it, right.
And we realize this was tough. This was tough. I mean, coming back from school, there'll be no food, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to live with whatever is there. So that was a kind of life, going to school. We walked. I don't know, it was 3-4 miles or 5 miles. It's a long distance that we used to walk to school and back. And so, yeah, that was part of my childhood life. And then also when it comes to my faith, my parents were nominal Christians. And I would understand why that Christianity in South Africa was seen as a religion of the oppressor. And so a lot of people were just attached to the church just to fill in the government forms. When they say you're a Christian, then they'll tick that box. But otherwise, folk never went to church. So it was only when I was around about 12, 13 or so, I started looking for a church on my own, with my niece. We started to go into one church, which was in the neighborhood, the National Independent Congregational Church, and then confirmed in the church, but, had no real connection to faith in God. Christ.
So you just basically went to 10.
Yeah.
Something to do.
Just love singing, love the church songs, God had just put for me that hunger for God, so really songs used to move my heart a lot. And so only late in my teen years that I had the gospel and gave my life to the Lord. And when that happened for the first time, I didn't have there was no church I could go to, so I didn't see any growth. But 1980, there was a very strong, it started before that, a strong Christian, student Christian movement, SCM. It became very strong, and there was a great revival. Lot of young people in high school, secondary schools, universities came to the Lord through that movement.
Wow.
So when that happened, that's when I committed my life to Christ. There was no evangelical church in the area. So we translated what we had received from the SCM at school and brought it to Sundays, and we started a church on our own as young people. So we used to have one pastor would come visit us, but we used to meet under this tree, and that was our church. And we then decided to build a small structure, mud bricks, and we built a church. And the church gave birth to what today is First Winterfell Baptist Church, and the church is still there. And so, and when God called me, I became a pastor of the church for about 3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so that was my life, and also my wife was part of those young people who formed the church.
Wow.
Where the youth together there. And I would say, our lives are very, very affected by the historical events of our country, unfortunately, apartheid. But God has been gracious, that we are where we are in life, and we are thankful to God and thankful to the world community.
What were some of the ways that you would evangelize as one that was young and zealous about the faith? I can see the young militant Pastor Paul out there in the village yelling to come to under the tree for church on Sunday. What was your development as it relates to your passion for evangelism and preaching?
Man, you can't believe it. I started preaching in buses.
Buses?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, preaching the bus when I'd be coming, I used to do some, what we call them, peace jobs. You get a job on a Saturday just to get some money. Yeah, so when I would come from work, then I would stand up in a bus, greet everybody, and start to preach. And preach. And that started. And then the fire started to burn very hard for preaching. And, my family, I led my, family members to the Lord, some of them. And then, then I went to become a teacher. And the reason, when somebody asked me, I remember one of the senior pastors asked me when I was about to finish my matric and said, "Where are you going to college? What are you going to?" I said, "I want to become a teacher." And he asked me why. I said, "That's an only opportunity I can reach people with the gospel." And when I became a teacher, 1981, 82, 84, oh my God, yes, I preached and preached. Then so many people came to know the Lord.
Tell me just walk me through a scene of Pastor Paul on the bus sharing the gospel. You finish your temporary job on Saturday.
That's right.
You're on your way back, long day work. You drop your money in a can to pay for your ride. What happens next?
Yeah, you get into the bus and you wait until the bus has finished all the stops, and it's going to take a long ride.
Okay.
And you know that, okay, between this stop and the next stop is going to be no stopping. And then I had a battle within me. I had a battle with him. For the first time I was doing that, I had this battle. And God, stand up, tell them. And so I would rise, and I remember I was with my friend, and he was surprised, and I stood up and said to everybody, "Greetings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Let me share the gospel with you." And I started, just go to one verse in the scripture and began to preach,
They're listening?
People were listening. Some were talking back to me. Some were cross, but some were, we could see that this was... It caught them, because they hear somebody says, God can save you. God loves you. And it was difficult those days because it was at the height of our struggle.
Mm.
And so to be bold to stand up and speak, and means you know what you're talking about.
You said Christianity, you're passionate about it, but you also said that many people felt that it was a white man's religion, the oppressor's religion more specifically.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Did you feel that way? Why did you or why did you not feel that way? How did you still embrace the faith in light of that? Talk about that.
Yeah. I let me say my conversion was very radical, dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And God proved over and over that He's alive. It was not just a some people just go to church and get connected. No, for me it was a really radical transformation. Let me just pick up one or two things. I was this naughty boy.
Mm-hmm.
I was caught up in many things. One thing I was addicted to and which I hate was smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got saved, I said, God, prove yourself by making me to stop smoking. And I can tell you, God did that.
Mm.
And that was a confirmation. And my aunt, who was now taking care of me, because my mom had passed away. I lost my parents and my mom at age 12, my dad at age 19. So my
But
aunt,
your grandmother.
yeah, my grandmother were staying at her place, but she had already passed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was staying with my aunts and uncles. So my aunt said one day, you know, you have changed.
Mm.
My friends said, you have changed. We know you. There's a young man, he's gone to be with the Lord. His name, he shared the same name as you. His name was George. I loved him so much. Great name.
Great man.
George was with me at the secondary school. When I got converted, I was at high school. He heard that I was converted. And this is what George said. If God can change that man, that we knew here was just a nuisance, I am receiving Christ.
Wow.
And George became born again. And he never turned back. And he said, you know what? We knew who you were.
I can believe George never turned back. I mean, that sounds like something that George would do.
That's true.
Yeah.
Man. So for me, then I would defend my faith from the fact that it's my life, it's
Personal
experience. Personal experience.
Yeah.
But worst thing that God did for me was that God started to affirm the faith in also the giftings. When I pray for people, they'll get healed.
Mm.
So it was not that faith, it was too much inside me.
Mm.
So even when somebody would say to me, this is an oppressor's religion, I would argue with them and said, indeed, you're right that they say they are Christians, but they are not.
Mm.
And I remember when I was teaching at high school, one time the students, you know, I used to preach at we gather in the morning, we call it an assembly, gather in the morning for prayers before I go to class. And I'll preach there. I mean, yeah, God would just touch people's life. And one young man said, sir, I was teaching biology in class. I said, before you teach biology today, I want to challenge you about the gospel.
Wow.
Do you think this gospel really will help us to solve the problems of this country? And I said, well done. This is a good question. And I showed the part of that you see, without the gospel, we are powerless.
Mm.
And showing them that, look, we need to be strong mentally. We need to be strong morally.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be strong so that when we get our freedom, we don't get wasted. Because we might get it and lose it.
Mm.
But if we are strong, if we have God on our side,
Yeah.
we will not be able to. And so I used to get those kind of engaging. And, but also I had my own internal struggle when I had to deal with white people. When I had to face now the horrors of oppression. When a white person will do something evil to me.
Yeah.
And then I would ask God, how do I respond? So, when my brother got arrested and sent to Robben Island, I was at secondary school. And my older sister said to me, now you need to know how to play the game because you are on the radar of the system. You can be arrested anytime. Be careful of what you say because they are searching for you.
This is your blood brother?
My blood brother, my only blood brother.
Yeah, and he got arrested for the gospel. He got arrested for speaking against white. Speaking against the Afrikaners.
Oh, nah, he did something worse. They beat up a white folk, almost kill him.
Wow.
Yeah. So they had a riot, and he was these naughty guys, led this riot, and they went to the farm. People looted the farm, and he manhandled the white man.
Wow.
And so he got arrested. So,
and violence was never an option for you.
That's what you're battling with.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're battling with that to say, how do I respond to this? And so every time you face with this, I used to think of, you think of the family. I'm the only one now left. I have to take care of my sisters, and especially my baby sister.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot risk to be arrested. My brother also, when I wrote to him the letter first time in Robben Island, he wrote to me back and said, play cool, just write soft stuff. Don't send any serious stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how much they wanted me, the system, up until I was at teacher training. I was at college, and they sent this policeman, decorated. He came and offered me scholarship. And I knew that this is a system. They said, we can do anything for you. Oh, my God. And I said, no. And he came and said, no. He sent the white boy who was a friend of mine. I said, go tell him no.
Yeah. So that's an amazing story, and the parallels to the American experience are just gems that are right on the surface. You don't have to dig into it. And so I'm hearing it, and I'm trusting our listeners will hear the parallels and digest it as it need be. But I do have to ask you about the journey as it relates to into pastor ministry. With all that is the backdrop, your rise to the president of the World Baptist Alliance, all that you have been able to do at the Peniel Salem Baptist Church in Pretoria. What's the progression as it relates to going from this young, passionate, literally bus preacher to now part of one of the biggest organizations in the history of Christendom, Protestant organizations, Baptist Protestant organizations, and leading one of the leading churches in your region now? How do we get to the Pastor Paul now? What is the journey into the space of full-time ministry and the educational component? And we can't ignore the fact that you're one of God's most gifted preachers. How does that development take place as well?
Yeah, I think just the first thing is I did not know where God was taking me to. I did not know my gifts. But there are people that God would send into your life. As a young person, our youth leaders, one man, he's also going to be the Lord, came to me and kind of like make me aware that, you know what, you have this gift in you. And he started to coach me, and whenever there's something that's happened within the youth, he will take me, says, you do this, you lead this, you do that. And I was wondering, because I was just seeing myself as a, backbench. All what I loved was preaching. If I had an opportunity to tell somebody about Jesus, that's what I loved. But not to be in the front seat. And so he led me, graciously to see and realize my gifts. And at the time, I was still a school teacher. And so, and I was resisting God's calling. Firstly, I did not know that God had called me. But when I started to realize God is calling me, I began to resist it. But God used ways of convincing me and really showing me that he has called me. I was at the high school teaching, and this fellow who's belonged to, it's a Christian church, but it's more cultic-like, came and said to me, look, man, God has called you. You are causing trouble for us here. You're preaching to us. You're making the school to be so uncomfortable. People are talking about God more than they talk about. And he said to me, God has called you.
Yeah.
And I just say, God, if you can talk through this man, something. So I had to make arrangement with God. So I went for training, and I came back. I served this church that I said we've planted, small church. And God moved me to another place, because God wanted to show me that I've called you to a bigger thing, not just this church. And when I came to this village, this area, I was preaching in schools, the teachers' Christian movement, students' Christian movement. I was pastoring a circuit of 5 churches.
You pastored 5 churches.
Yeah, 5 branches.
At that time, you're on your second church.
Now, yeah, so I've left this church and I've gone to this place. So I have my church and I started this one. So there were 2, and I was asked by this one to take care of them. And this one gave birth to another one. So I have to take care of this one, and also I have this one. So I used to move around.
So you pastor 5 churches
5
simultaneously.
Churches, yeah, simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's a circuit system. But God is helping, because I'm raising preachers, that join me. And I'm doing well in teaching. The school is happy about my work. The students love me. But then my convention needed to start a Bible school. They didn't know how to do it. They got somebody who started, but said to them, you have to pay me more money. And they could not. And so this other pastor came to me and said, look, God's finger is on you. You must go and start that Bible college from zero. And that was my journey. So I went, started this Bible college. It grew until today. It's still there. It's our Bible college, the Baptist Convention College. We're training ministers. And from there, they had to move me now, because it became such a successful project that we started with only 20 books, with a budget of $50. And within 2 years, we had 17,000 books with lecturers. And this thing was just one of the best projects.
It's still going today?
Oh, yeah.
Are you a board member now?
Now they've called me back. I'm the interim principal.
Principal president for us.
Yeah, still interim principal.
And where's it located?
It's outside Soweto. It used to be in Soweto for quite a long time. Now we've moved it to our convention center, which is just outside Soweto.
And when you say we, what convention center is that?
The Baptist Convention of South Africa.
Baptist Convention of South Africa.
Yeah, that college belongs to the convention.
That's a solely African movement. That's not connected to the States.
Yeah. So that's when the convention, some of the convention leaders said, actually the one who was the incumbent general secretary said, look, I'm leaving. He was coming here. Actually, his wife is still in California, Desmond Hofmeister. He has passed on to the Lord. They said to me, I'm leaving the office and I don't see any other one to succeed me successfully but you. We've seen what you've done. And there was resistance, of course. People didn't want me. I'm an outsider, kind of like I'm not raised within their ranks and all that.
The regional ranks or the convention ranks?
The convention itself,
Okay.
there are these the children who come from the families of pastors, or these men or guys who are very famous. I'm not famous. I'm not known. I'm coming from the, from
Small
the margin.
village,
Yeah, from the small village. Nobody knows this guy. And then they refuse me, to be general secretary. I said, okay, no, I'm happy. I'm doing the work here at the college. I'm training leaders for you.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the guy who came in failed dismally within 4 months. Failed dismally. And so they had to bring me in. So when I became the general secretary of the convention, at that time I was already connected through the college to the Baptist World Alliance, to the All Africa. It was then when I was serving as general secretary, then I became very active in the World Alliance, very active in the All Africa Baptist Fellowship. 2006, elected president of All Africa, served there, and then served the World Alliance. So that's my path. In short, of coming
getting to the World Baptist Alliance, from the village to the role as the president of this Bible college, people hearing about it.
That's right. The
general
secretary.
These sub-positions in the World Baptist Alliance ultimately leads you to be the president of the whole thing.
Yes.
What about your pastorate journey?
Pastoral journey, yeah.
How long have you been at Peniel Salem?
Peniel Salem, I started Peniel Salem 2001.
2001.
We started Peniel Salem from scratch. There was no church in the Baptist church in the area. There was no black church in the area when I came in 2000. In 1996.
You initially said that you weren't allowed to live in Pretoria.
Oh yeah, no.
When did that switch?
No. The switch came after 1994 at the end of the apartheid.
At the end of
See,
apartheid.
the area where Peniel Salem is, that used to be the stronghold of the KKK, of the South African version of KKK.
Wow.
The most vicious, racist, hateful people used to live there. So as a black person, you'll be beaten to go and live. So when apartheid ended, black folks had to move there. We moved there in 1996, and I was the general secretary. No, I was the principal of the college at the time and focus at the college. So we realized there was no church. We used to hold prayer meetings, and then but it was growing. We hold just prayer meetings, and people were we discovered that one is a Christian, that one, and ended up really being a good size. And we started this fellowship, and 2001 we launched Peniel Salem Baptist Church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Still going strong to this day.
Still going strong to
Have your own location.
Yeah.
That you are purchasing from Dutch people. So not only are you in an area that was habitated by KKK, but you're worshiping in a space that were from Afrikaners, Dutch, who came over in the colonization.
Yeah.
As you see yourself developing in ministry and at this present state, and I hear when you talk about people who have impacted your life, no longer here, as the seasons of life, which for all of us are transitioning and transition, what do you see as your passions? What are some of the things that keep you up at night as relates to ministry?
Yeah, beside that, I would want to see really Peniel Salem Baptist Church getting stable with its program. We want to make sure that our mission is strong in the area. That's one thing, Once we get done with the payment, we're going to really go full steam in expanding our mission in the area, because as you've seen, you've visited the church.
I have.
Those young people, most of them that you've seen, their parents are not members of the church. Those young people come on their own.
Wow.
Invited by our own young people.
Wow.
There's so many of them. I mean, after the pandemic, we thought, we've lost so many young people. Now they will no longer come. And now that everything is over, we're back. I was shocked because we had to separate the young adults from the young people. And the young people are so many now.
Why do you think that's the case?
Somehow our church attracts young people. And we have a very strong children's ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these young people come through the children, and then they invite their friends and just, come to our church. It's a cool church. Like this weekend, they have a worship night, which was just young people worshiping, So we try to really be accommodating to young people. But I want to do more. I want to see Peniel Salem run what I call Friday nights or Saturday nights for young people, where we can invite them to come and watch a movie together, where we can watch them just to come into a space where they can just talk. And so I want to see those things really happening. And I have a youth and young adults who have shared the same vision.
Wow.
And they want to really see young people loving the space, but being impacted and influenced by the gospel and through the ministry of Peniel Salem. And so, that's what we want to see doing. And that's one that keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
The second thing is I have this deep passion for leadership development. Actually, I have taken it upon myself on my own. My convention is still resisting. I'm doing leadership training. My convention, I wish they could buy into, because I feel that we need to be, we need to be very deliberate in developing leaders.
Mm-hmm.
You look for them, you find them, you identify them. Like I was identified and told there's something in you, and so that we can develop leaders that can become, impactful in the community. And looking at the leaders that are coming through my church, I'm thankful to God that when we talk about the church board, I have several young adults in the church board.
Wow.
And that for me, it's good. I have young people who sit with us in the church board, and they can tell me, Pastor, if you want us to be part of this, don't do that, do this way. and I listen carefully. And I've seen, and they've come to me and said, for example, we want to take over this ministry. And I said, okay, let me see what you can give. And I've seen them doing well. And I want to see that, for me, would be my focus as I move forward, to develop young people, to develop leaders, and train even our current pastors. That's
Amazing. As you think about the landscape of South Africa, socioeconomically, politically, what are some of the challenges that are taking place, and how does those challenges impact ministry?
One big thing, is that I wish South Africa could realize that we are living in the technological era, and that the government will do all in its power and resources that are available to make sure that South Africa has access to internet connection, the whole of South Africa. I'll tell you what. Today, education has gone virtual. You need to sit in your office and you can reach out to your students everywhere. I can't do it. I want to connect with my students on Zoom. They connect, and after 5 minutes, there were 60 of them. After 5 minutes, I'm left with 5, and I ask, and then they send messages.
Wi-Fi is down.
Wi-Fi is down. So for me, that's one thing that really it's a challenge for the country to do. And if we can overcome that, it's going to bring a huge, huge change in our development as a country, and empowering people, because then education will be accessible. People don't need to travel to be in a certain space, but they can always access it.
Is that South Africa as a whole, as a country, or is that just a region of South Africa where you minister, Pretoria, Johannesburg area?
No, it's the whole of South Africa. There are certain areas that even your network, just for your cell phone,
It won't work.
It's so difficult, it won't work.
Wow.
People tell you if they have to make a call, they need to drive or walk to a certain place where the network,
wow,
it's good. So that for me, it's
checking out with the technology, and that's impacted your ministry.
Yeah.
Back to South Africa, it's made up of 9 different, I think it's territories you call them? Provinces.
Yeah, province.
What are those 9 provinces, and what are the distinctions of them?
Yeah, our provinces, you'd start with the most popular one, Gauteng, place of gold. That's where Pretoria and Johannesburg are. Up north, it's Limpopo, next to Zimbabwe. In the east, Mpumalanga, and then KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Northern Cape, Northwest Province.
Oh, wow.
That's right. Those are provinces.
In those provinces, they are made up of tribes?
No, those provinces are provinces that are demarcated politically for administration.
So they're like our states?
They're like your state. They have their own state governments.
Okay.
Yeah, those are like your states, yeah.
Is there a central figure over all of South Africa? The monarch, what Mandela, the office he held, president of South Africa, that's over all of the 9 provinces?
Yeah. Our government is organized almost like yours. You have your state. Actually, you have your local government, which is your governors. We call them local government. And then you have your province, your state, and you have your federal, which is, as we call it, national government.
National government. And that's what Nelson Mandela was?
Yeah, so Mandela was the president of the whole country. And then you have premiers who preside over provinces. And then you have mayors who preside over metros.
Is most of those Black, Afrikaner, mix?
No, predominantly Black. There's
Black.
no premier who's Afrikaner, no.
So politically there has been...
No, there is one, Western Cape, yeah.
But
Western Cape.
Politically, Blacks have established themselves. There's still that economic struggle.
Yeah.
And what's the stronghold economically? Is that over certain natural resources? Is that over corporations, real estate? What is it that's causing the economic instability not to take place? Equality, I should say.
Yeah, the equality is start with the land ownership.
Land ownership.
You know, the whites are still own our big farmers, farming area. I mean, huge. These farming areas, which brings billions of rands into the countries and the hands of whites. Okay, and then you go to the mining. The mining, it's in the hands of big corporates. Only one guy, 2 that I know, Black guys who own mines. Only 2, but the rest it's Anglo-American, still dominant, and De Beers, which is poor, the Afrikaners. So
some of those are Americans that own it.
Yeah, Anglo-American has been there forever. I mean, they've been there mining diamonds forever.
Wow.
And then you have your production, your industry is still led by.
What's the role that tribes play?
You see, that's one thing that be difficult, because your king and your chiefs, they don't have so much power.
Figurative more.
Yeah. It's only few of them who participate in the economy. Like the one where there's a chief whose land it's in the platinum belt. So they were able to get royalties from the mining companies in the platinum belt. That brings money into the royal family. But also that would mean you need a very wise chief who's going to say, where do we put the investments, So not all of them really know how to do that, And so it end up money ending, that process might make money to end up in the pockets of few people instead of developing the
As a chief is a
communities.
king and a king is a chief. Those are interchangeable terms.
No. Kings are superior over chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah, and like when the colonial government took over, so during the colonial era, what happened is that the British monarch did not want to compete with anyone in status. So they changed the title of some of our kings to become chiefs, which is less
gotcha.
in status.
What are the dominant tribes in South Africa?
The bigger tribes in South Africa, as numbers are concerned, is Zulu and Xhosas.
Zulu and Xhosas.
Yeah, and then they have kings, and then you have what? I'm not certain whether the northern Sotho. They I think they are northern Sotho also will be the third maybe. They have their own challenge that they've got a lot of chiefs and their king is unable to take the throne because they're fighting over that. But
Zulu being
the Zulu got their
Zulu, Xhosa, and then you said the Suhu.
Yes, northern Sotho.
Sutu.
Yeah,
Sutu.
northern Sotho, and then
Northern
you have the
Sotho.
smaller ones. Like
then there's a lot of more smaller ones that are
smaller tribes. Yeah,
and these tribes have their own dialect and language as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Those. But the good thing is that all of those languages are now official languages in our country.
Oh, they are official languages?
Oh, yeah, the official languages. So the government documents can be written in any of those languages.
Notice, me going to South Africa, I always notice that someone can be speaking the South African language and then go into English in the middle of the sentence and go back and forth. Is that because they know so many languages, so many dialects, so many tribal versions of the language?
Yeah, it's because of that. And we like doing it, but at times it affects actually our children's knowledge of our languages.
Okay.
They cannot finish a sentence in a local language, especially these younger ones. They'll always put an English word because they don't know what it means in the local language. So just
Got you. Where what are some things on your heart as we close out? Some of the information you can tell us about where the church is, address. There may be somebody listening that's going to head down to South Africa with us. I know you'll be at IC3 in Houston in April. We come to that every year. We do IC3 South Africa every year in September. Pretoria, you are looking to pay off your building there. And certainly you can reach out to Sinai.church and let us know how you want to support that. We are a supporter of that historically and would love to allocate those funds or designate those funds to get those there if you want to be a supporter of that. What are some of the other things that you may be working on now?
Well, Peniel Salem Baptist Church, as Pastor George, you've said that God has blessed us with a magnificent building, the beautiful campus that you visited twice now. It's in Pretoria, in East Lane. It's 69 Swan Street. And we are thankful to God. We are very, very thankful to God. It's a witness to prayer.
You're on social media?
Yeah, and we... At the moment, we're running our Facebook page, Peniel Salem. If you go to Peniel Salem Baptist Church, you will surely get to our, and you'll see what's happening. You'll see these young people I'm talking about, and you can watch our some of our services that are on that page. Yes, we are excited and we want to see ourselves really growing, our ministry impacting life. The next thing that we are doing now, even as I speak, that we are now venturing into helping with education. We are going to open what we call homework center. We have received a donation of second-hand computers, laptops, and we're going to set up those. We're going to set up the internet connection so that the children in the area, we have 2 primary schools, 3 high schools in the area. So we're going to make that available so that when kids come from school, they can come into the place, the classroom, sit there, do their research, write their homework, because most of the work that they do, some of it require them to go on internet, do some, research. And in South Africa, not every family has a luxury of having a computer.
Wow.
And so we want to make that available, and so that kids can just come into a safe space and not having to go to an internet cafe. They go to internet cafe, and sometimes, these places are not safe for children. So there are people who prey on kids when they go to these places. So we want to make that ministry available to our children, and then we'll develop it to Saturday classes where we want to teach maths and science, and because we have the good thing that we have space, and we are thankful to God for that.
Thank you so much, Pastor Paul, for
Thank
being
you.
with us once again, preaching to our church on Sunday, sticking over to do this podcast with us. Yeah. Hopefully those who are listening will understand the continent and its nuances a little bit better, specifically the southern region, and then get a better grasp of your story. It was such an amazing story and testimony of God's grace and providence in your life and His sovereign will that He's yet still using to infuse Christ into not just Pretoria and Johannesburg, but all of South Africa, all of the southern region of Africa, all of Africa, and across the world. And we praise God for you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for listening to Nuanced Conversation. Make sure that you check us out on all our digital platforms for upcoming shows and check out past interviews. God bless you. We're out.
Amen. Thank you.